When speaking to a reporter, it's very important that you remain as professional as possible. Avoid flippant comments and attempts at humor, because it's likely to get you in trouble. This is especially true if you're talking to a television reporter, because the camera is always rolling. Now, I cut my teeth in broadcast journalism, and I know for certain that there's a well-honored trick that television cameramen will pull. They'll be setting up their camera, and they'll be putting it on a tripod, but what you may not realize is that they're rolling on video and audio tape while they're doing this. At the same time, the cameraman is talking to his reporter, determining what angle he wants to shoot the interview from. He needs to do a whiteout, whatever the case may be. But at that same time, anything you say and however you behave while you're with that reporter is being recorded, both audio and video. A perfect example of that is if you remember when Barack Obama was running for president, Jesse Jackson made some offhanded remarks on Fox News Live when they went to break, because the camera was always rolling, and it was played back on Fox and CNN repeatedly, to much embarrassment to Jesse Jackson. So my advice to you here is, from the moment the reporter shows up in your office until the moment he leaves, you are on the record, and you should always be at your best behavior. And of course, as with any interview, choose your words carefully. If you don't want to see it in print or hear it on the airwaves, then definitely don't say it. Keeping your emotions in check is very important when dealing with reporters. You never want to get confrontational with a reporter. If you do this, a reporter will think, one, you're hiding something. Reporters get paid to ask tough questions. If you start to lose your temper with a reporter, those questions will become tougher. And then the reporter has you right where he wants you, because then he knows you're likely to say something that you're going to regret. A good interview is one where confident answers are given, calm answers are given, and hopefully the story gets written the way it should. And of course, depending on your media market, you're never going to have a reporter that's an expert in local government. You've seen the effect that the economy has had on newsrooms from Jim's presentation. Reporters are being asked to do more with less. It's not uncommon for reporters to have to file 2 or 3 stories in a day. And it's not uncommon for a reporter to be pulled out of the entertainment section and then put on the government beat, because the government beat before that person left or was fired, or whatever the case may be. So you have to understand that they're not going to be experts in local government. They're not always going to understand the language that we use, but they still have a job to do, and they still have a deadline to meet. And you really have to be respectful of that and try to work with the reporter and understand what their limitations might be. I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with your open record laws. I say this because I did it, and I found it to be a tremendous benefit to my career in working with reporters. Now in Delaware, we refer to it as the Freedom of Information Act, Delaware Code, Title 29. I say this because your open record laws may provide you with certain exemptions that will relieve you of your responsibility to have to address a reporter on certain subjects. For me, those exemptions include personnel issues, pending or potential litigation, and emergency response plans which identify critical infrastructure. Now, in the 10 years that I've been with Kent County, I've exercised all 3 of these exemptions at least one time with reporters. If you haven't already, consider establishing a county policy detailing the procedures for a reporter following an open records request. Again, I consider that one of my great accomplishments at Kent County. When I first started with the county, we did not have a real good process in place for reporters asking for information. What was happening is the reporter might call down to the planning office and request some transcripts, and the planning office was sending them out, and I wasn't aware of it, and then reporters were calling commissioners, and commissioners were calling me saying what's going on, and then articles were coming out that we weren't prepared for, and it really kind of it gave the public a sense that we really didn't have a firm control on what it was we should be talking about. So what we've since done is implemented a policy in which complex requests for information have to be placed in writing to the public information officer. And then it's up to me to develop an appropriate response. Not necessarily speak to the reporter on the issue at hand, but rather make sure that the proper documents get put together and get disseminated appropriately to the reporter who's requesting them. Also, establish a media relations policy if you don't already have one. This was another thing that we did more recently. Again, in Kent County, all of my department heads, our department heads, are authorized to speak to the press, and rightfully so. They have experience in their discipline that I don't have, and we encourage them to talk to the press. However, what we have asked of them is that they notify me when they get an interview request, so that I in turn can notify my county administrator and my commissioners. And when I do this, I can tell the commissioners, we've gotten a request, it appears that the reporter is working on XYZ story, this is what I want you to be prepared for. Should the reporter call you, please let me know. And we found that that works very well, because it gives everyone a heads up and it lets us know what the reporters might be working on. And this is very important as well. Under no circumstances should you ask the reporter to provide you with a copy of the story before it is published or broadcast. If you do this, essentially you are telling the reporter, I do not trust you to write this article correctly. Worse, you are setting yourself up for accusations of censorship. The cold, hard reality of giving an interview is that once the reporter leaves the building, it is out of your hands. The best thing you can do is go home, fix yourself a drink, and wait for the newspaper to hit your driveway the next morning, or wait for the 11 o'clock news. Now, with that said, if you read an article the next day and there's some inaccuracies that you're not comfortable with, it is well within your right to call the reporter and say, I appreciate the story, but you referenced this case and I think you meant to reference this instead. Or, I thought I told you this and you quoted me as this. Reporters do like to hear back from you, and they do want to know when they make a mistake. I don't know a reporter that sits down after he's done an interview with anyone and has said, okay, how can I mess this story up? It's not good for their career advancement. It's not good for their portfolio. So they do want to hear back from you, and they do want to know if they make a mistake. I routinely do it as the public information officer. I don't do it every day, of course, because I guess you have to judge that by the degree of the mistake that's made. But certainly, I would encourage you to do that. Now, my bottom line, my conclusions, shying away doesn't make the story go away. The reporter is going to get his story one way or another, whether you decide to talk to him or not. Now, if you choose not to talk to the reporter on a given issue, be prepared for the little caveat in his article that says, Commissioner Jones didn't return his phone call seeking comment, because a reporter is going to want to put in the article and let his readers know that he tried to contact you and he couldn't. So keep that in mind. Preparation is the key to a successful interview. If you have someone that can run questions with you on a given subject prior to meeting a reporter, you'll be that much better off. It puts you in a position to give you confident, calm answers. And of course, always remain composed throughout the interview. Your body language will speak as much to an interview, to a reporter, as will your words. So it's incumbent upon you to always remain composed.